Hello everybody, this week on Throttle Grotto I'm tearing apart the 928 engine in my tiny cramped workspace over here and putting new head gaskets in and kind of resealing the motor before we put it back in the 928. Stay tuned. Alright everybody, so I've given myself an incredulous amount of room to work here. Got my little CRV table set up here in the garage to hold some tools, and I've already kind of started working on the 928 engine a little bit. You can see the pile of parts underneath here that I've pulled off. There's the intake with all the runners, some of the hard fuel lines, the little elbow for the throttle body, the exhaust manifolds, the distributor cap and plug wires. There's the throttle body. So this whole engine is actually covered in overspray. You can see here that like if I rub it with a wire brush, it actually comes off fairly easy. So this is kind of what it looked like when I started, and this is what it looks like all scrubbed up. Now I do have another set of these heads on the bench that I might end up using, but these are probably fine and probably a better option because there's still on the motor, and as far as I know they're not leaking. So I need to clean all this junk out of here, and I've got this stuff I've already got cleaned out from the other engine, so I'm just going to take this stuff off, swap it out with stuff that's already cleaned up, and then get these off, and then I can start pulling the heads, pull the oil pan off, and see what kind of mess I can make here in the shop today. Alright, so here is the current state of affairs. Let me grab the flashlight. So I've got this all cleaned out. I threw some more junk in here, just like tools and some extra bolts that I've been pulling out. So I had two studs break off. One there and one there. To me, it looks like someone had been in here at one point. Did some RTV action there. Down in here, everything inside the engine looks pretty good from this end, you know, but you can see down in the engine, everything's mostly clean in there. And the real bonus is there's still coolant in here, and the coolant is clean. So that's a good sign. That lets me know that the head there's a little bit of particulate here. I think that's just from me wiping around the edge and stuff. But everything's kind of cleaning up a little bit, looking a little bit better. Obviously, like these spark plug holes need to be cleaned, but I'm not going to do those until I have the heads off, because then I can get in there with a little brush and everything will run right out the bottom instead of into the combustion chamber where they'd go right now. And I'm not trying to get super anal on this because, look at that, I dropped a leaf in there or something. Well, because I don't need to. We're just trying to get this thing running, make sure that it's going to be reliable and clean. Whoa, we don't need disco party mode. Let's check the other side here and see how these look. Well, I can see into one of the cylinders down there. It looks pretty nice so far. So there's a little bit of buildup on the back sides of the valves. I'm not really too worried about that. A lot of that can be just cleaned off with some decent fuel and maybe some seafoam or something, and just running it. but we're getting there. We're getting closer. Going to keep stripping brackets and pulleys and all that stuff off the engine, and we'll see how far I get tonight. Right, so I managed to get one of those studs out, the other one's being pretty stubborn, so I'm going to wait on that one until I get the head off the engine. I can work on it with a little more room all the way around it. So if you're not familiar with the timing belt and how long it is on a 928, here it is. From cam to cam, this is about 2 feet right here from cam to cam, so you can imagine the length of this timing belt is pretty good. In fact, I'm getting ready to pop it off here anyway, so I got to remove the tensioner and this pulley, and then the timing belt to come off. I don't really have to remove that pulley, but once I remove the tensioner, this should come off, and then I can show you exactly how long this timing belt is, and then I can start working on pulling the heads. Alright, so the water pump is out. All the coolant, you can see there's still some coolant here. It looks good. I'm going to finish getting all the coolant out of here before I turn the engine over. I told you before I was going to show you the timing belt. This is the timing belt. It is a monster. I measure from the pulley to the halfway point. That's like 38.5 inches. So that's over a meter. I guess 3 feet's about a meter. So this ends up being about a 7-foot timing belt. So pulling out the water pump, I had 1, 2, 3, 4 studs break off in the block. Sorry, actually that's not a stud, that's a nub, and that's a nub. So I actually only broke off 2, so that's good. But this one I'm a little weary of. This thing looks like this one's going to be a tough one. I'm hoping that these come out easy because they're in the block. So next step is to take this pulley off, take this here fancy cover off because it's cracked. I have another one that I'm going to replace it with that's all cleaned up. Alright, so I'm going to start by pulling this side, pulling the head. Head comes off in 2 sections. You can see here, there's the cam section and then the valve section. It's pretty straight. Well, it's not really straightforward. It took me a while to figure it out the first time. So these little plugs come out to access the Allens that are deep inside of here. And then on the bottom, and then down here, there's some Allen heads that come off. And we'll undo all these, pull the cam assembly off. Should come off pretty easily. Okay, so now since we have already removed these are the other ones we have to remove. And they're not too bad. You just have to make sure that you don't drop them in the inside. They actually come out pretty easy, even easier if you have a very long extension for your Allen wrench, which I'm going to go grab right now, like this one here. Now we can have, so now you see we have, here's our lifter assembly, here's our valve train. Everything actually looks really clean in here. It's really like super clean inside the second part of the head here. There's some oil I got to clean out here before I make a huge mess. But now let me move this head. Let me move this cam assembly to a safe location. Right, now that we have everything out of the way, you can see where the head studs and the bolts are in the head exactly. So these are the ones that are on the outside up here, and then there's ones that are on the inside here. So pretty easy to get to, just a lot of steps to get. All right, so everything in here looks pretty good, especially for a free engine. You can see the cylinders are pretty clean. The tops of the pistons aren't all washed out. I don't know a lot about engines, but I'd say from my perspective this looks pretty good. It's normal to see coolant down there because the coolant surrounds these sleeves, so I'm going to have to siphon all of that extra coolant out of here before I go turning the engine over to do the oil pan. And there's some debris in here just from all the cleaning and popping everything apart, and there's a little bit of corrosion on the studs, which I think is also probably normal. But like compared to what I had, which was a completely rotten seized motor, this is pretty good so far. All right, it's pretty dark out here, so I'm gonna have to use my headlamp for some illumination. So this side looks pretty good as well. There's some grit from like the head gasket getting pulled off, so I gotta get some compressed air and clean this stuff out. There's a few ridges and stuff in here. I'm not going to worry too much about it. It's probably not cost effective to have this gone through and redone. I think it's going to run just fine. The other side does look a bit better. I don't want to turn it over too much until I clean all that out, and it's super late and I have to get up early to go to work tomorrow. But looking at the heads, they all look like they're in pretty good shape. I'm just gonna throw a plastic bag over each one of these. Looks like some kind of plant material or something. The head gaskets both were in pretty good shape. I didn't see any areas that, like between the cylinders or anything like that, that looked bad. So I think as far as that goes, all that is pretty reassuring that I should be able to throw this motor back together in relatively short order and have a runner. Alright, so I've got some work to do in the meantime before I can put the engine back together. I've got some studs that I've got to extract or cut off and drill out. Either way, those are going to take some work. I've got some things to clean up. I still need to pull the oil pan off. I have the oil pan that came off of this fine engine, which I've already gone through and cleaned up and run through the solvent tank, so that's ready to go on. Can't wait to get rid of this block. It's just taking up a lot of room, but I wasn't sure if I was going to need any of this stuff. All things considered, it's like a 40-some-year-old engine, so I've got to cut it a little bit of slack for some things that might go wrong along the way. So next time I'll finish tearing down the engine by flipping it over, pulling the oil pan off, and kind of take a look inside and see if there's anything else that's a surprise in there. The oil came out clean, so I don't think it's going to be anything that's going to be suspect or require a huge amount of... I don't think it's going to have to go to the machine shop or anything like that. So let me know what you think about the condition of this free engine in the comments below, and until next time, get out there and work on something.